This is Musings and Counsel from London Baker Law with Debbie London Baker.
What does a trustee actually do?
Trustee is the one who gathers all the assets to be managed by the trust and then manages the distribution of the assets, whatever they be. So they would sell a home to help fund a trust for the children, let's say, okay? And then they manage how those get distributed. Well, right now, I've got a couple where I've got one where when the woman dies, because her husband's predeceased her, when she dies, her, two of her daughters will get a third of all the assets immediately. One of her daughters will get a certain amount per month for 5 years, and then the rest because that daughter has not been responsible with money. So the trustee does that. They see that all that happens, and you have to set up a special bank account. It's a trust account. You have to file a tax return for it every year, or at least pay attention to what it earns. So it's depending upon the asset, the dollar value. It's not a difficult job, but there are definitely responsibilities that go along with being a trustee.
We had your last show, and I asked him to call back today,
Okay.
and we're still kind of waiting. He had a question. He said, I love listening to your show, but I don't have a lot of assets. Should I still sit down with Attorney Baker? And I said, of course you should, but why don't you call the show and ask that question? Because when people think estate planning, they think estate, you've
Right.
got to have millions of dollars, and that's just not right.
No. People find it hard, and I can appreciate this. They find it hard to get around that it's not a lot of money. So for the person, should they call back or not? Here's my answer to the question. If you have a bank account, with even a few $100s in it, you need a power of attorney because you need somebody to be able to get to that money should they need it. And people say, well, what are they going to do with $500? I said, well, I have no idea, but it might pay you utility bills for 3 months if need be, or something like that. If you pass, it's no longer valid, but it might pay utility bills for 3 months. So that might be interested. You need a will because if you die, when you die, because we'll all die, when you die, if you have anything that you have not effectively designated to go to somebody, you have to go through probate. And you want something in place before the fact where somebody's been designated the representative of the estate, the executor, the personal representative. It depends upon your state. You need a healthcare surrogate because you want somebody to be able to make healthcare decisions for you if you can't. When people are married, the spouse can generally step in. I still think you need the document. But if you're single or you're living in a committed relationship without marriage, then you need to have that in place saying, Joe can act for me because the hospitals, the doctors, they need somebody named. And you need a living will, which is about your end of life. So people call me often to this person's question. They call and say, I have a living will. What else do I need? Well, a living will, they mean what they want to have done at their end of life. They don't mean a last will and testament. The other reason for the last will and testament, which I've learned, I haven't experienced it, but I've seen, is if you don't have it and you die as a result of a car accident or something like that, or medical malpractice or something really horrific that you can't imagine, and it happens, you need a vehicle to collect the assets. So right now, people who have Camp Lejeune cases, whatever that is, are being told to form a trust because if the case doesn't get, or at least get a will, because if the case doesn't get settled before they pass, they'll at least have established a vehicle and a person responsible for collecting the proceeds. So it's reasonably morbid.
Plus, probate's very expensive.
Probate is very expensive, but the other thing is, and I've said this here: if you hate your family, don't do it. You don't do it for yourself. You do it for your family. I mean, there's enough grief to go around. Grief, guilt, whatever. There's enough stuff going around when somebody dies without putting legal challenges on top of what's already happening. If you've got it in place and you leave, we talked about the green box, last month, and you leave the way for people to find out what to do, it's just easier. It's just easier. And avoidance, denial, I mean, all those are perfectly understandable human attributes. But do you really want to do that to the people you love the most because you were too afraid? I mean, I've told you the third biggest reason for not doing it. The first is what the gentleman called to the woman, I don't have anything. The second is it's too expensive when they've never checked it out. And the third is they'll die as soon as they do it. Well, I mean, I don't know how to get around that one, other than you're going to die anyway, so why not do it? But yes. So the person who called, if they're listening, whatever. At 1 second after midnight on your 18th birthday, you need it, because at 1 second after midnight on your 18th birthday, your parents can no longer do anything for you without your permission.
This has been Musings and Counsel from London Baker Law. Learn more at londonbakerlaw.com. Thanks for listening.